Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining me. This is Alan with another broadcast of the Morlog Morning Digest. As always, you can help the channel grow by liking, subscribing, hitting the bell for notifications, but most importantly, please share the content. Donations can be made at paypal.me/Morlog Morning Digest. You'll be able to find a link in the description below. Today, we're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to end up talking about the art of argumentation. And with a lot of what we talk about, inevitably debate follows because it's not the mainstream narrative, and in turn there's a knee-jerk reaction to a lot of the information we try to convey. And if you've ever tried debating a subject that's a little bit taboo to discuss, you'll notice that you're constantly met with the same fallacies being used over and over again to try to dismantle your arguments. And recognizing these fallacies and being able to flip them into something that works for you is imperative to being able to win an argument. Whether or not your argument is founded in truth or not, you can use what I'm about to talk about in order to persuade somebody. And in turn, it's going to allow you to recognize propaganda a whole lot easier, because these tactics are similarly used throughout every culture over and over again. Now, one of the biggest fallacies that people use is the ad hominem attack. And we're not going to spend very much time on this because it's a fallacy that's easily recognizable, and you've seen this especially if you've discussed flat earth with anybody. As soon as you bring it up, they start calling you a retard, uneducated, you need to go back to kindergarten, etc., etc. Any personal attack on you, the human being, is an ad hominem attack. And in all honesty, if that's the first thing that they come at you with, it's not even worth going forward in the argument. Just recognize it and get yourself away from it. One of the other fallacies that people use on a regular basis is the cherry-picking fallacy. And a prime example of this, you can also refer to it as the Texas sharpshooter fallacy. And basically why you would call it the Texas sharpshooter fallacy is because, let's say you shoot 100 rounds at a target, right? Just a piece of paper. You find the best grouping of shots after you shoot them all, and you draw a circle around it after you've already shot, and you say, I'm a sharp shot. It's the same thing as ignoring a whole bunch of data that goes against your argument and cherry-picking the one example that goes with your argument. And you'll run into this over and over and over again. And you can actually flip this on its head by doing the very same thing to your opposition. So if they come at you with a Texas sharpshooter or a cherry-picking fallacy, you simply take their logic of accepting that fallacy as a form of argument, and you use it against them by coming up with your own cherry-picking fallacy of your own. Not with the intention of using it as an argument, but with the intention of them calling it out as a fallacy. Because if they do call it out, you can dismiss the fallacy because they just used it, destroying their argument at the same time. Another prime example of this, I was debating religion back in high school, and at the time I was a hardcore atheist, and I was in a debate class, and religion came up. So my teacher pitted me against the entire class who all went to the same church together. And I formulated such a good argument that none of these kids could argue with me, so they invited me to their Bible study to debate their pastor, their youth pastor. And I got up on stage, and I was like, this argument's over right now. And he was like, why? And I was like, because I have faith that you're wrong, so that makes me right. And he was like, wait a minute, that's a fallacy. You cannot use faith as an argument. Well, in essence, all religion is faith. So I looked right at him. I was like, if I can't use faith, then you can't use faith. Let's go. Let's just say that it didn't last long. There was only about 10 minutes of discussion before I was asked to leave. Now, at the time, I didn't realize I was fighting from arbitration. Basically, what I'm saying is, even though your argument isn't true, if you use the proper logic, you can make it indefeatable when you're debating. Now, modus tollens is a great example of how you can do this. And basically, it says, if A, then B, B, therefore A. So basically, you can use this in any situation, whether it's correct or incorrect. Basically, the argument would be formulated as, it's raining, I need to wear my coat. I'm wearing my coat, therefore it's raining. Even though the logic is perfectly in line, and the first statement may be true, right? It's raining, therefore I'm going to wear my coat. The logic doesn't necessarily compute, because you can't say I'm wearing my coat, therefore it's raining. However, the logic follows. Now, you can use this to devastating effect, even though your statement may not be true, if it's formulated properly. And in turn, if your statement is true, modus tollens is 100% undefeatable. You can't defeat it if the logic follows properly. So, a prime example of modus tollens that can't be argued against would be, an observer at 1 foot should not see the horizon at a distance exceeding 1.22 miles. The horizon exceeds 1.22 miles at an observation height of 100 feet. Therefore, the horizon is not a physical location, i.e. the horizon doesn't exist, there's no physical geometry to it. I want you to think about that, because it's indefensible. You can't argue against it because the logic follows, right? However, I could use the same form of logic to make an argument that you could destroy. You get what I'm saying? Basically, logic isn't always accurate. Logic is fallible is what I'm trying to get at. So just because you have a logical mind and you think logically doesn't mean you're always going to come to the proper conclusion. You have to have common sense and be able to apply that common sense to your logic. However, that doesn't mean anything when you're in an argument. When you're in an argument, you're trying to win at all costs. Otherwise, there's no point in arguing, okay? Argument's different than debate, okay? But what I'm saying, if you've ever been in an argument with your wife or your spouse and you're heated in that emotional moment, you're not thinking, I'm trying to win this. You're not thinking about the ramifications of the argument itself or what you're saying. You're simply trying to win the argument. And you can use the fallacies that I've just talked about to devastating effect. Now, having this knowledge comes with great responsibility, because in turn, if you have the ability to articulate your thoughts, right, and you can back them up with these logical modes of thinking, such as modus tollens and modus ponens, right? And you understand philosophy. And on top of that, you can start calling out these fallacies that everybody uses on a day-to-day basis. You can make it seem as though everything you say is logically sound, even though you yourself, who's making the argument, knows for a fact what you're saying is not true. And you will see this used to devastating effect over and over again in politics, especially the United States. It's obvious. They're doing it right now with the coronavirus by telling you that masks aren't going to protect the public, while at the same time talking about if we don't get the masks, our health officials, they're at higher risk. The logic doesn't follow, but they set it up in such a way where it seems as though the logic does follow. This right here is the art of argumentation. And if you can recognize it, mastermind it, and be able to manipulate it in the real world, you can use it to devastating effect. God bless and have a great day, guys. I will talk to you soon.